Alrighty. Well, everyone, so great to see you. I'm going to go ahead and begin. Today's webinar is on engaging your younger donors and Gen Z, and I'm really excited because Mindy is joining us from the organization Mighty Citizen. They do a lot of great work for nonprofits. A little bit about QGive before Mindy dives into today's content. QGive is a digital fundraising platform. We provide event forms, auctions, peer-to-peer fundraising tools, and donation forms for over 6,500 nonprofits in the US and Canada. We love nonprofits and we love helping them fundraise, and that's what we're all about. You guys will be getting some more resources from us after this webinar tomorrow morning. So if you want to learn more about QGive, there'll be plenty of links in the recap email for you to do so. Some housekeeping. We are recording today's webinar, so you will get this recording tomorrow in the recap email, along with a copy of today's slides and a few resources that Mindy is sharing with us. And like I said, feel free to ask questions. We have reserved some time at the end of today's session for a Q&A. So if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box. We will be using the chat box for back and forth discussion and a few polls that Mindy has. Questions we'll get to at the end, and we don't want to lose track of them, so please place those in the Q&A box. So I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Mindy to introduce herself and set up today's topic.
I think I need to be given permission to share.
Oh, let me see here. There, you should be able to now.
Great. So, hi everyone. I just want to confirm you all can see the presentation, correct? There's always a little bit of a hiccup when we're transitioning, but great. Yes. Okay. So hi everyone. Thank you for joining the Donors of Tomorrow, Effective Ways to Engage Gen Z. And I just kind of want to call out the obvious right here. In all honesty, this title is a little misleading because Gen Z is already donating. They're already giving. But since nonprofits have a lot more potential to steward this generation, I'm going to keep it at the Donors of Tomorrow. So, and I also want to note that just because Gen Z is donating today, it may not mean that they're donating to your cause today. So it's important to do your own market research and see if the causes they care about are aligned with your mission. And so with that, I'd love to see in the chat, what are 2 words about how you feel about Gen Z as a giving partner? Anybody have any excited and hopeful? Hopeful. I like that. A lot of huge potential, unknown, hopeful, underserved. That's a good. Engaged, underestimated, great, unknown, smart. Yes, it's a little unknown. So passionate, small donations. Great. We'll get into all of that today. So a little bit about me. I am Mindy Avitia. I'm the Senior Events and Marketing Manager at Mighty Citizen. And one of my strengths is definitely party planning. I love a good dinner party with friends. And one of my weaknesses is my 2-year-old hugs. Her name's Olive, and they're like little dopamine doses, and I just can't get enough of them. And so who is Mighty Citizen? We are a branding and digital transformation agency based out of Austin. We've got team members all over the country, and we serve mission-driven organizations. So that can be nonprofits, associations, higher education, government agencies. And some of the services we include are things like web development, research and analytics, brand development and brand strategy. We create marketing strategy and campaigns, and we define user experiences and create content strategies. So a lot of stuff we do. And by the end of this session, we're going to really dive into the main difference between traditional and next-gen donors and what exactly motivates young audiences to give and what Gen Z wants from nonprofits, right? And then we'll sort of wrap it up with how to create effective campaigns that tap into the next-gen donors. So let's just dive right in. Let's talk about traditional versus next gen. I don't know if this is lingo that you hear a lot in your spaces and in your departments, but there's some distinct differences between the two. So traditional donors are still primarily the bread and butter of major gifts. That's true, as someone said before, small donations from Gen Z. But as Gen Z ages into their careers and incomes, they will one day take the place of the traditional donor. And so things are going to change, and they're probably going to happen faster than we're anticipating. So the traditional donor is typically boomers and Gen X, and they're mostly reliable. As you can see, this is your annual donation that they give in response to your annual appeal or your fundraising strategy. And they give to the same donation or the same organizations over time. Like I mentioned, they're typically a part of Gen X and baby boomer generations, and they appreciate the valuable updates, but do not want them frequently, which does not pertain to my mom getting updates about her granddaughter at all. She wants those frequently. But traditional donors are more likely to give to the big nonprofits, not the smaller ones, the big brand names. And let's talk about the next gen donor. So here my seemingly random donation that they give sporadically. They're typically millennials and Gen Z, and they are, as their name suggests, the next generation of philanthropists. These folks like frequent updates and short ones. We live in the age of TikTok, y'all. We all know the short form video is king right now. And they're more likely to learn about the causes that they care about through influencers, their coworkers, and the media more than traditional donors are. But there is actually some overlap, which is helpful when we're planning our strategies, right? So 60% of all donors cite a nonprofit's website as the top place they'll go to research an organization. So your website is so important in making those conversions happen. And word of mouth is still one of the strongest marketing tools in our toolbox. 71% hear about causes from friends and family across generations. And then more than half say a simple donation page is all they need to start a relationship with an organization. So making sure that landing page on your website for donations is sleek and user-friendly and accessible is key. So I just kind of want a little informal poll right now to see who I'm talking to, but who's in the audience today? What generation do you belong to? I am a millennial myself, and I often find myself explaining to folks that we are in fact different from our Gen Z friends. And a little anecdote is that you can tell the difference because one generation feels more social after COVID lockdowns, which is Gen Z, and millennials like myself aren't as thrilled with social gatherings, which I have no data to back that up, but I feel the same. So let's see, we got millennials, Gen Z, Gen X. Oh, we got a Gen Zer, so they can really tell if this is accurate or not. Gen X, 80s forever. I love it. So we kind of got a lot of younger audiences here today, which is exciting. So, oops, I just skipped ahead. So I want to just mention the obvious here. There are generalizations ahead. Yes, we're all unique, we're all distinct, we're our own beautiful snowflake, but I just want to point out the obvious that everybody kind of falls into different categories. Some, like people were saying in the chat, they're millennial, but they lean more towards Gen Z, or they're Gen X and they lean more towards millennial. we're all different. It's all, the lines are blurred. So generalizations ahead, just pointing out the obvious. So let's dive in. What is the next gen donor and who are they? So just pointing out the differences here. There was a small debate at Mighty Citizen over whether or not millennials should be included as young donors. I said we shouldn't, and we've ascended into a different bracket of donor, just donor now, but it was a hot topic and people had strong opinions about it. So anyway, these dates aren't set in stone. I do want to make a difference between the generations though, because there is one, especially when it comes to their giving behavior. So in terms of age, the youngest millennials are about 29, and the older Gen Z is about 27, 28, right? So they'll probably feel an affinity towards one generation more. Like I said, it's a case-by-case basis. And then of course, after Gen Z is Gen Alpha, and I'm not ready to talk about that. That's my daughter's age. I have no idea what her giving is going to look like in the next 15 years, but we'll cross that bridge. So are next gen donors social addicts, or are they activists? They love social and they love using it for good. But let's dive in. Are they addicts or are they activists? I have another question for the chat. What do you think the average attention span is for all humans, not just Gen Z, not just Gen X or millennial? What do you think the average, both addicts and activists? Okay, we're getting 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, short, 2 minutes, shorter than a goldfish I saw, which is pretty funny. And the real answer is 8.25 seconds. And that is not just Gen Z. Like I said, that's all of us. We're all guilty of this. And yeah, somebody was right. It's less than a goldfish, technically. And as somebody with an affinity for data and numbers, there are variables, of course. So for example, we don't have a goldfish's attention when we're binging Stranger Things, or, I just binged Beef, which was really good. And I watched it in 2 days, but it was more than 8.2 seconds. So let's talk about what they have in common. They understand technology, and marketing can't look like marketing anymore. They don't want to be sold to, right? Both generations celebrate their own diversity and are actually more likely to choose other on a census form. And both generations get their news and views from social, not exclusively, but social is likely to be a starting point, right? And then they'll move on to articles or other news outlets to dive deeper into those news stories. And they want to better the world and their communities. They're the only generational groups to feel more engaged volunteering than just donating. And they want to build stories for connection. And here's a big one that I'll probably reiterate a couple times. They give mostly on mobile in small spontaneous bursts, as many of you fundraisers know that. So here's my favorite, is let's talk about what we don't have in common. So millennials are more incentivized to give based on tax deductibility, while Gen Z is not. This is from QGive's Generational Giving Report. And this could be due to financial situations as millennials ascend into leadership and higher incomes. And we'll just have to keep an eye on the data to see if this changes for Gen Z over time as they become more savvy and financially literate. Gen Z wants frequent communication at least once a week and wouldn't even mind more, while millennials are okay with less frequent updates. And this was a little shocking to me, being in the nonprofit space for almost a decade. Nearly 4 out of 10 Gen Zers didn't know what Giving Tuesday was. So if Giving Tuesday is a big push at the end of the year for your fundraising, there's some work to do to tap into this generation and this market specifically. So this is from Blackbaud's 2018 Next Generation of Giving. And I want to point out the obvious that it's old data, but I wanted to include it because it shows that Gen Z are a part of the philanthropic community. They started giving young. I mean, in 2018, they were young. And as a millennial, for me, admittedly, I didn't grow up in a traditional philanthropic home. And so I didn't start giving until my mid-20s when I was out of college and learned what philanthropy was. And Gen Z is much different. They're giving much younger and building trust and relationships with organizations much sooner than millennials are, or were. So I just thought that was interesting and why I kept the data from 2018. So Gen Z cares about, let's talk about this for a second. All of these issues that I'm going to talk about are somewhat, if not extremely polarizing, right? So this is what Gen Z cares about. They care about equity and inclusion and gun control, a huge, huge issue for kids graduating high school and going through all of these horrific events. They really care about gun control and climate change. You know, think of the Gretas of the world. There's kids, they really care about what the world is going to look like when they're adults, or I should say older adults. They already are adults. And hunger and homelessness. And so I bring this up because you may not want to turn up the dial on your communications in fear of alienating some of your more traditional donors, which is completely understandable. I do get that. While your baby boomers may be a little bit more, you know, they're at a different starting point than Gen Z is when it comes to some of these issues. And, you know, the thing is, if you don't say anything, Gen Z is also noticing that, and that can have a negative impact on whether or not they are contributing to your cause. And so because your donors that are different, because they're at different starting points on these issues, segmenting based on where they are and how old they are, you know, frankly, may be the strongest strategy for cross-generational engagement. So what you say in an email targeted to Gen Zers might be different than what you say in an email targeted to baby boomers and above, right? And that can have positive returns. It's a little bit more of a lift on your end in terms of strategy and marketing, but it could have higher returns for you. And that just goes back to listen to your data. I'm curious how many of you feel like you have good data right now. Donors are telling organizations their preference of channel, their interest and content preferences, and even the time of year and type of campaign they prefer to support. So using those multiple data points to target will improve the donor experience, increase engagement and retention, and it will even accelerate increased giving in some cases. So matching the experience they have with other entities in their daily lives, right? So ask what year they were born on a donation form and, you know, obviously make it optional, and then you can collect that data and use it to segment your audiences appropriately. And here we go, just reiterating again, consider segmenting audiences generationally. So let's talk about what Gen Z wants. One thing that Gen Z definitely wants is seamless technology, right? So younger audiences are used to the subscription model. Think Netflix, Spotify. I loved ClassPass. So use that in your favor for monthly giving communications. You know, we can't just be mobile friendly anymore. We really have to be mobile first. If you don't have a strong mobile game, you're likely losing younger donors, and your full site should be responsive, not just certain pages, your full site. Let them click around if they want to, let them learn more, but make sure that your site is mobile friendly or mobile first. And Google wants this too. It'll help you not only engage with Gen Z, but it'll also help you with your SEO and your search rankings, and it'll, you know, boost your search engine results. And so this likely means customizing your off-the-shelf donor platform, right? It's a simple experience that they want. And they want shareable petitions, video asks, social campaigns. They really like to be engaged with a campaign and your cause. So if you're thinking, you know, TikTok doesn't really share, But you go to Instagram and there's TikToks, you go to Facebook and there's TikTok. So even though there's no social sharing within the TikTok platform, it is being shared across multiple platforms. So people really do enjoy that and benefit from it. And so offer a monthly giving subscription experience, right? And this, you might already have a monthly giving program, and it might not look any different on the back end and what you have to do. But on the front end for your marketing and your communications, you can be a little bit more savvy and change the copy and content a little bit more to be more reflective of a subscription-based model, so that you're speaking the language of Gen Z and they understand, oh, this is like, I'm subscribing to this cause and I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to get frequent updates. And, it's something that they're very used to. Here is an example from Charity Water, one of the big kahunas who does really great marketing and communications. And like I said, young people are used to the subscription model, so using that in your favor can really help. This is one of Mighty Citizens' favorites. We donate regularly, we volunteer regularly with Meals on Wheels Central Texas, and we also worked on their website, so we're a little biased, not gonna lie, but it's easy to read, it's easy for them to understand quickly, and how they and they can understand quickly how they can engage monthly in the nonprofit. So easy buttons for one-time use versus monthly, these kind of things. And of course, like I said, it works beautifully on mobile. Okay, another quick poll, get your chats ready. Well, after this one, so young donors want to be social. So now a quick poll. How many social media platforms are you on? Either you personally, if you want to answer that, or your organization. I'm very curious to know. 4, 2, 2, 1 to 3, 4, 3, 4. Okay, so 3, 4. I'm gonna guess probably Facebook, Instagram, and either Twitter or LinkedIn based on the 3, 4. But that's gonna be my educated guess. 50% of Gen Zers and 43% of millennials have given directly on social. So social is big. Some people are saying they're on TikTok. I love it. We all know social media is a huge opportunity, and not only for donations and driving that, but for engagement in general and driving brand awareness. And whatever you do on social, do it well. Really commit to it and have someone managing it. It's too crucial now. It's the cost of entry for any marketing professional. So really make sure that it's someone's job. It's not just something we're thinking about it and we do it when we think about it. And of course, always have a plan to measure the success of it, right? I love it. You guys are on so many platforms. So let's talk a little bit about social media, which based on the numbers y'all provided, I don't think all of you are trying to manage accounts on all of the major platforms. And I think us at Mighty Citizen would definitely advise against that, because it's too much, especially if you're a small comms team, like you can't do it all. So really focus on the ones that matter and the ones that you're seeing results in. So you want to also know where your current and future donors are and choose those platforms, right? And that is going to probably require some user research. And Mighty Citizen has free articles and tools on how to conduct your own user research specifically for nonprofits. So you might want to go check that out. And again, test. One thing about testing is that you really want to do it over a long period of time. If you're only testing for a week, a month, these things, it might not be long enough to gauge results to make a strategic decision to move forward. So yes, testing is a little bit of investment, not as much if you're testing organic, but test and then wait and see what is happening so that you can then, sometimes test for a quarter or like half a year, 6 months, see what the tests or results really are, and then you can implement a new strategy or the same strategy for the next year. Yeah, just to reiterate, successful and social is a lot of experimentation and seeing what sticks, throwing spaghetti on the wall. So even in the world of TikTok, Instagram is still the premier app for Gen Z, or it was, according to GWI's 21 flagship report on the latest trends in social media. So Instagram is still really popular. I mean, also because people are bringing their TikToks over to Instagram. So there's also a lot more flexibility with donations, and there's a broader audience there. I know we're talking about Gen Z, but clearly there's a broader audience there. So Instagram is a great starting point, and I'm sure a lot of you are already on Instagram. So Gen Z, like all of us, right? They really like appreciation and recognition. And sometimes this can look like swag and incentives, not as much the names on your website and you're listing out all the donors for your event gala or whatever it is. They kind of want stuff or incentives, like, how are you going to help me advance in my career, which is through volunteering or other things, or they want cool swag, or sometimes just a simple Instagram post or social worthy post could go a long way. They really like public thank yous on donation forms. You can try to ask for their handle. So, obviously make it optional, but a younger person will probably put their handle so that they can be thanked publicly and share that with their networks and their friends and grow and bolster your target to Gen Z. So they also care about the brands that they align with, and they want you to be reflective of who they are and the causes that they care about. So everyone knows Movember, or Movember, however you pronounce it. Who remembers the ice bucket challenge? That was like almost 10 years ago, y'all, which is crazy. I think it was like 8 years ago. Yep, ice bucket challenge. I did not personally do it, but a lot of people did. A lot of people learned about ALS. I am still on the emails from ALS because I was involved somehow in a campaign around circling that ice bucket challenge. But and Gen Z grew up in this time, right? That was almost 10 years ago. So they grew up in a world that started to see social activism space online. And obviously things like Facebook profile pictures and those little avatars that you can add on your pictures can help grow your brand awareness. But Gen Z really isn't hanging out on Facebook, and that's not how you're going to engage them. It's just not really that cool anymore, which I hate to say. So think about campaigns like this, Movember, when all the guys we know, they shave their beards or they grow mustaches, for better or for worse, whatever you think. And these campaigns are powerful and impactful because they're so massive that they allow other nonprofits to really tag onto them and use the brand awareness of that to promote their missions and their causes. So if you're a health organization, for example, any type of health organization, you likely already have men's health initiatives. So aligning yourself with campaigns that make sense could be a smart way to engage. So think about what your niche mission is, or your niche industry, for lack of a better term. Let's say niche cause. And then search what kind of viral campaigns are going around, and can you use that to bolster your own fundraising efforts. So also, we got to talk about short form video, which is also the TikToks, the Reels. We all watch them. We all scroll through them. It was, so, for better or for worse, we do it a lot and people love it. And actually one of my colleagues knows and is very close friends with the person who runs this Facebook page. And I did not know that when I put this in the presentation. So it's complete kismet that this was here. But it stood out to me, the Oregon Zoo stood out to me because, y'all, they have 2.3 million followers. Crazy. I mean, look at all the cute animals. I highly suggest going on their TikTok. It's adorable. And Yeah. Oh, the cute baby orangutan's name is Jolene, in case anybody wants to know, Bree says. So go on, look at their page, kind of take notes. Obviously, a zoo and your nonprofit are going to be very different if you're not a zoo, right? But you can maybe learn from some of the techniques. Influencer marketing. So this is from the nonprofit Girls Who Code, and they partnered with both Lizzo and Your Female Engineer, who both have very different follower counts, right? I mean, Lizzo is Lizzo. So, and I know that we can't all partner with Lizzo. I would love to partner with Lizzo, but I just don't think Mighty Citizen's going to do it. I don't see that in our future. So targeting smaller influencers can be a strategy to reach Gen Z audiences. And that can look like influencers within the causes that you care about. So Girls Who Code, obviously, hooking up with Your Female Engineer really makes sense. But there could also be local influencers that can really help bolster your cause and your mission. Just doing the research and finding out who has those followers, who has those young audiences that you can tap into. And a lot of times, if they are really passionate about the cause and the mission that you serve, then they'll do it for free, if not a very low cost. So it'll definitely help amplify your impact. Instagram donation stories. So this has been around for a while, and it is just kind of the growth from Facebook's story or Facebook's donation page. So kind of tapping into the younger audience, bringing that into the Instagram platform, because Meta now owns Instagram for a couple of years now. But they're a great, this is a great way to engage. If you're engaging with fundraising and peer-to-peer on Facebook, you can also bring that into Instagram. They have to have a Facebook and you have to link those, but it's another way to engage younger audiences like Gen Z. Twitter, y'all. I don't know what's going on at Twitter. It's pretty, I'm just gonna point out the obvious. I don't know. It's a pretty unknown space right now, and a lot is going on and changing. I'm just laughing at Tracy's comment, but it's a pretty unknown space right now, and a lot is going on and changing literally hour by hour. Y'all know this, y'all are in the nonprofit world, and with major news organizations like NPR and PBS pulling their profiles, it's probably a good idea to keep note of what's going on over there and make the decision that best aligns with your mission and your values. So we're at Mighty Citizen, we're definitely taking a wait and see approach with Twitter. So that's all I have to say about Twitter. Some notable mentions that we really don't have time to dive into are YouTube, Snapchat, and even Reddit. So I worked with a nonprofit that raised tens of thousands of dollars by featuring some of their students on an Ask Me Anything on Reddit, like not lying. It was pretty shocking success for everyone involved. But a note is that they didn't bank on this strategy moving forward, right? Like they were like, this is kind of an outlier thing that we tried and was successful, and we'll continue to bake it in, but we're not going to add that into our projections for the next year. It's kind of unpredictable. So while Gen Z are active on these platforms, Instagram remains the place to target this audience, in my opinion, and based on the data. So if you don't want to, you don't have to be on TikTok. I know there's a little debate whether or not you have to be on TikTok or not, but I would say you don't have to if you don't want to, but you should be creating short form video, whether you're posting that on Instagram or on TikTok. So young donors and Gen Z specifically want good, accessible design. So what does that mean? Young people expect fresh design. So Gen Z grew up in the Apple age where millennials like myself did not. We grew up in the dial-up and in the AIM, like coming home from school and getting on AIM and doing that. So we did not grow up with always with the accessible, sleek design that is the Apple age. And, some nonprofits think that they have good design, and that means they don't need help anymore. So I think that this is an outdated perception. Good design is not the differentiator. It is the cost of entry now. The lines are blurred between for-profit and nonprofit. This is a generation that grew up in the time of, Tom's and Warby Parker and the one-to-one. So they don't, like I said, they don't really care about your 501c3 status. They care about the impact that you're making on those causes that they care about. So they're more savvy about what design is. They want to be delighted, and they want to have interaction in their when they interact with your brand online and your mission. And bad design creates doubt. If it's poor, if it's not mobile first, then they're going to think that you're probably an outdated nonprofit. And I have seen this firsthand, that is not true. I know that is not true, because your programs team and your development team is hustling and doing what they need to do, but your marketing and your comms it just might not be up to the standard that your programs are. And so that disconnect is losing out on younger generations for sure. You don't have to worry about them thinking you spent too much money on design, whereas in more traditional donors, they're thinking about the overhead costs, how much did this website cost, etc. Younger audiences like Gen Z, they do not think that. They think that it's fairly easy to create simple designs. We live in a time of Canva and Squarespace, and you may not be on those things, but they don't think that the overhead problem is a big one. So let's talk about Coach Art. I love Coach Art. This is an example from one of their recent website designs. It's not a Mighty Citizen website, but it is a one that I really like and I thought could benefit from it. Coach Art, they're an organization that connects volunteer teachers with kids who are impacted by chronic illness. So their website really had to be sleek because it had to talk to both the volunteer, which is around Gen Z age, both the student, which is more, Gen Alpha, younger kids, and then your donors, right, and your fundraising. So it had to hit all three recruitment strategies. And I think they did a great job, and that they're sleek, they're easily accessible. So go check it out. So young donors and Gen Z, they want to be included. So inclusion through experience, participation, it's getting long, I'm talking a lot. They want to be involved in advocacy and peer-to-peer. So, they're more involved in participation, peer-to-peer fundraising. They want to get networking opportunities from nonprofits, help further their career, and again, get something in return. And again, their interaction helps lend the authenticity of your nonprofit and your brand as well. So here's one that is near and dear to my heart as the senior events and marketing manager at Mighty Citizen. Events, they really like to be involved through events. So experiences and fun events to share with friends. You can consider satellite parties for large events. And then there's off the wall events and campaigns like I talked about in November. And in Austin, we have the superhero run, which is really fun. And it gets a lot of people out, and there's kids dressed up as superheroes. It's adorable and people love attending. So you can, like I said, consider satellite parties of larger events. And you got to give them images to share, like photo booths, etc., so that they can post on social. They can talk about their own causes that they care about and really get your brand out there. So they want to be a part of a brand that represents them and their values, right? So they want to see the brand as an extension of themselves. They're very particular about the brands that they choose. Again, they grew up with the one-to-one model, with the Warby Parker, with the Toms. So They are very savvy when it comes to the brands that they choose, and they don't want to be sold to. And they want to, they want to ownership, right? They want a little bit of ownership in the brand and in the cause, especially if they're donating and giving their time and our money. So I would love to talk about your opportunity here. So, you can help young philanthropists into legacy givers and maybe even major gift donors, and you can lower the cost barrier generationally so younger audiences and Gen Z can be included not only in your volunteer service provision, but also in your board and committee service, which, it could be a little scary to include them, but Gen Z is being included will offer more diverse perspectives to your board and to decision making. They may push you to think differently, and I think having them as a board member or forming a committee of a younger generation really could be a good strategy, especially if you're thinking about targeting them specifically and stewarding them into donors and into major donors. I think stewarding this generation is a smart move. They care, they love, they want to be included in your brand and your mission. And while they develop higher earning potential, your stewardship and faith in them is really going to pay off. So let's talk about the takeaways and the next steps that y'all have. So what did we learn today? So seamless tech is crucial when we're talking to Gen Z. And good design, like I mentioned, is the cost of entry. We need to take note of for-profit trends like the subscription model and let young people participate and shape your campaigns. It'll really help and pay off. And finally, the kicker, following these best practices benefits everyone. So with that, I would be remiss if I did not talk about Mighty Citizens Mighty GPS. It's a 10-minute self-assessment to measure your organization's marketing strategy. You get an overall score and stage for your particular organization. We have scores across 6 categories to identify areas of strength and opportunities for improvement. And the best part of it is that you get a customized report catered to you with the next steps for each category to help you move into the next stage of your own marketing maturity for your nonprofit. And Bree, being as amazing as she is, did just share it in the chat if you want to get started. So with that, I just want to say thank you. I believe Milena is going to share this out, but this is a link to get resources and learn more about everything we talked about today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mindy. That was really great. I love learning. I'm a millennial, but I love learning more about Gen Z and how we can get them involved in our fundraising. Oh, thank you, Maya. That's so nice. Glad to hear the feedback. If y'all have any questions, now is the time that we can take a few minutes to discuss any questions you might have. So if you have any thoughts, any questions, please drop those in the Q&A box and we'll get those answered for you.